Answer.
I am Alex Cassis, an instructor of OPR 121, which is Introduction to Critical Thinking and Argumentation. I would like to welcome you to this topic, which is the beginning of the course, which you will learn some important issues related to critical thinking and argumentation. You are welcome.
Endelea.
Okay, in this course we start with course objectives because this is the beginning of OPR 121. Therefore, we are supposed to know some objectives which actually will go through knowledge area 1, knowledge area 2, up to knowledge area 6. Now this is knowledge area 1, but we'll start with course objectives which actually will be going on throughout all knowledges. So we start with them. The objectives of this course are to enable you to make sure that you gain the techniques of valid and sound arguments. That's the knowledge number 1, where we have this objective, and also we are going to have the same objective in other knowledge areas. Also, the second objective is to help you to acquire the knowledge of analytical and the rhetorical means to present well organized and a consistent study and research papers. So you should remember these objectives as you go through your course. Through learning this course, OPR 121, which is the critical thinking and the argumentation, you will be equipped with the knowledge on how to think critically and thus gain the knowledge to evaluate the procedures of the arguments you make, especially when you will be writing your research paper, your term paper, assignments. Also when you will be answering questions, and then even in normal conversations. And for those who are dealing with mass communications, when you will be writing your articles and the other issues related to your work. It also helps you as a student to recognize and avoid fallacies. So you can see through these objectives, you can see this is very important subject. Throughout this course, you will be acquainted to be a good critical thinker. This is what we expected from every student, with the knowledge to evaluate different issues before making a decision. Sometimes we encounter the problems whereby some people make decisions before they evaluate issues, and therefore they reach some decisions which are not proper. So you will be helped from this subject to make clear judgment and examine it in social context. Now, let us see what is critical thinking. You can have different ideas concerning this. It is a problem solving. We can start with this notion that critical thinking is a problem solving. Why a problem solving? It is because you have an issue and then you want to articulate that issue. And then from that articulation, you will be solving a certain problem. Therefore, critical thinking is regarded as a problem solving. It is also regarded as an issue which makes a person not to be contented with the first solution, rather should continue to seek further clarifications to a problem while thinking more deeply. That's where we have people having a certain solution, but you should not be satisfied with that. Then you should continue to think more and more. And ultimately, everyone will be giving some ideas and clarifications. And ultimately, that's where we can find that there are different solutions. And through this, we can have development in different places. Another issue in the critical thinking Critical thinking is about knowing, understanding, analyzing, synthesizing, applying, and evaluating the idea or a problem. It is also concerning looking for what is implied in a question rather than what is stated. It is also applying the rules of logic to problem solving. So all these are related to what we can say the meaning or the significance of critical thinking. Critical thinking does not allow emotions to take place while thinking about the solution of the problem. What does it mean when we say emotions take place? That's where we find that people may be arguing on a certain issue, but in the process of arguing, sometimes people become angry, they become harsh, and therefore sometimes they stop thinking. So that's not what we expect in critical thinking. Critical thinking should not allow emotions to take place. People should not become angry when they think differently. People should not stop. People should not be discouraged. We expect people to continue thinking and thinking, and therefore emotions should not be entertained. There are four aspects of critical thinking. Number one, we call abstract thinking. This is thinking past what your senses tell you. Abstract thinking, actually, this is what comes in your mind. What you have. The senses will tell you what you have, even before others get to grasp what you have. So everyone should have abstract thinking. That's where we can start with. And then from that, we have creative thinking. This is thinking out of the box. This means you move from what you have, and then you think, even relating with the others what they are thinking. It is called innovative thinking, where you find people creating new ideas and even solving the problems which were thought that they would have not been solved. So when we say creative thinking, it means from abstract thinking, we do not expect that you remain with what you have. But what you have should also be collaborated or cooperated with the others in order to create something which can be the benefit for many. So creative thinking is very important if you want to be a critical thinker. Number three is systematic thinking. This is about organizing your thoughts into logical steps. Lack of consistency can be a stumbling block to understand the nature of idea being presented. So we expected systematic thinking. This means we would not expect a critical thinker to just jump from one step to the other, even without organizing. We expect you to be systematic. Why to be systematic? It is because when you become systematic, then eventually you will have something which is tangible, something which can be helpful, something which can help others. If you are not systematic, even yourself, sometimes it's not easy to know what you were thinking before. Number four is communication thinking. This is about being precise in giving your ideas to others. It is about sticking on the point you want to deliver. This allows others to respond, and thus communication becomes meaningful. So communication here means that what you have, what you know, what you have grasped, what you have observed, actually what you have evaluated, we expect you to share with the others. That's where the idea of communication comes. Sometimes when people who are knowledgeable enough, people who know many things, but when it comes to share those which they know, sometimes they fail. It means they fail to transfer their ideas to others because they lack proper communication. So in communication thinking, we expect you as a critical thinker to know how you can share your knowledge to others, because you should not remain with your knowledge. We expect you to share your knowledge with the others. There are components of critical thinking. Components of critical thinking, there are these. Number one, there is a question. In the critical thinking, we expect you to ask yourself, what is being asked? One should understand the nature of the question. If you do not become clear from this, then sometimes you can find yourself responding to some questions which are not the same questions which you have been asking. So we expect you to ask yourself what is being asked. If you understood the question, or even if not the question, have you understood the issue? So question is very important to be asked in critical thinking. Another component is purpose. Why do I want the answer? Because sometimes it is not necessary that in every question you need the answer. Sometimes you can forget about that. But once you go to the question, it means you need the answer. But the purpose, why do you need the answer? It means you should always have a purpose. It's not a matter of asking questions and you ask questions even if you have no purpose. So the component of critical thinking, number two, is purpose. Another component is point of view. Where do I stand to look at the question? Everyone should have a point of view, should stand somewhere. You should not just be moved by the majority. You should have your own point of view and stand somewhere where you can be confident on that. Another component is information. You should expect some information in critical thinking. What data do I have? You should ask yourself where you are, where you want to know, what you want to deliver, what data do I have? And then you can find yourself that in every aspect you have something to share. And then another component is concepts. What ideas are involved? In every aspect, in every issue, always there are concepts. And these concepts are the ones which are involved in discussions, the concepts which are involved in maybe in answering questions, the concepts which are involved even when you write your term paper, the concepts which are involved even when you deal with research work, the concepts which are involved even when you deal with writing articles, those who are dealing with mass communication and others. And then we have assumptions. What am I taking for granted? You assume. Everyone should have assumptions. You should ask yourself, what am I taking for granted? And here, I advise you that you should not take things for granted. When you have assumptions, you should make sure that you evaluate your assumptions in order to find whether they are related to what you are dealing with. And then we have inferences. What conclusions am I drawing? Always never draw a conclusion which can mislead people. Make sure that you evaluate the conclusion before you really agree that this is the one where I should stand. And then we have consequences. What are the implications of your question? You should ask yourself. And then we go to another issue, which is also very important. Who is a critical thinker? Having seen all those previous ideas, you should ask yourself, who is a critical thinker? Is everyone a critical thinker? Some of the characteristics of a critical thinker are the following. First, a critical thinker should acknowledge personal limitations. That our thinking are always limited. That's why we need each other. Once you realize that, then you should call yourself a critical thinker. That you should allow even the other ideas to come into your mind. You should allow other ideas to challenge you. You should allow other ideas to correct your mistakes. If you don't acknowledge that you have limitations in knowledge, you have limitations in knowing different issues, then it means you will be stagnant. You will not understand issues out of you. That's why we have started with an idea that you should think. That's one of the definitions of critical thinking is to think out of the box. This means you should go out and find the other ideas which can also help you. So number one, this is very important, to acknowledge personal limitations. Sometimes we have people who think that maybe they know everything. That's not proper. We should acknowledge that our knowledge, our ideas, our experiences have limitations, and therefore we should not limit ourselves. Also, in order to understand that you are a critical thinker, you should see problems as exciting challenges. We should not be discouraged with the problems. The problems should be helping you to go forth, rather than just discouraging you and you stop thinking. See problems as exciting challenges. Don't cry. Don't be discouraged. Don't stop thinking because of problems we have encountered. Sometimes, even students, we have students, sometimes they fail some subjects, they fail to respond to some questions, and then they just stop even studying. That's not the issue in critical thinking. If you become a critical thinker, you should see problems as exciting challenges. And then, another issue which should help you to evaluate whether you are a critical thinker, you should understand the goal. You should understand the goal. Do you know the goal when you think? Another issue, use evidence to make judgments. If you use evidence in every aspect, then you should call yourself a critical thinker. So you can see that to be a critical thinker is not an easy task. Not everyone can become a critical thinker. If you don't belong to these characteristics, if you don't have these characteristics, it means you don't belong to those who are called critical thinkers. Use evidence. There are people, they just say sentences which can even frustrate the other people. They don't have evidence, they make judgments to others. They just even think that maybe people have done something wrong. They don't have evidence. They just simply make judgments. A critical thinker uses evidence to make judgments. Another issue, to evaluate yourself whether you are a critical thinker, you should always know whether you are interested in others' ideas. If you are not interested in others' ideas, then you think that you are alone in the world. You are alone in the area where you are. Then you are not a critical thinker. You should be interested. Sometimes you find that even when students are discussing, some students tend to see that maybe what others are contributing are nonsense. So if you are not interested in others' ideas, then you are not a critical thinker. And then another issue to evaluate yourself whether you are a critical thinker, you should know whether you are skeptical of extreme views. If you are not skeptical of extreme views, to be skeptical of extreme views means you should always avoid some views which can lead you astray, some views which can cause even other people to be annoyed. So if you not escape those, if you not run away from those, then you are not a critical thinker. Always you should think whether the ideas you want to articulate are meaningful and helpful to others. And if you find that what you want to articulate are not meaningful and then maybe they are not helpful, then you avoid them. If you rely on issues which you already know that they can annoy others and you not avoid them, then you are not regarded as a critical thinker. So you should always entertain constructive views. If you do not entertain constructive views, then ultimately you will be entertaining destructive views. In discussion and in arguments, we always discourage destructive views. We encourage constructive views. That's views which can help others, views which can encourage others, views which can contribute positive ideas, positive concerns. So always, to be a critical thinker, you should always avoid destructive views. A critical thinker thinks before he acts. This means, that's why sometimes you find some people taking a long time before they make decisions, because they want to think more and more before they take actions. You go to the office, you find a good boss, you ask him maybe to make a decision. He doesn't make decisions quickly. A good boss will think before he acts. But if you find a boss who is quick to act, sometimes he can even make some judgments which are wrong. So always think before you act. This is very important. And then a critical thinker avoids emotionalism. You avoid emotionalism. Do not become angry so quickly, because maybe sometimes you receive some information, you get some responses which maybe are not related to what you expected, so you become angry, maybe you become annoyed, maybe you feel that you don't like to see a certain person. So you should always avoid that in order to be in a position to become a critical thinker. A critical thinker also keeps his mind open to allow others' ideas to come in. This is where we have said that you should not limit yourself. You should always open your mind to allow other ideas, regardless whether those ideas maybe are related to what you were expecting, or maybe they are not related. You should be in a position to choose among those many ideas which are coming in order to help you to have those which you want. Because in this world, we have many ideas, and we should always keep our mind open to allow those ideas to come in. I always hesitate to accept those who do not like to allow different ideas. For example, if you are a leader, you are in the office, you are people whom you are leading, and then you don't allow them to contribute ideas, to develop some ideas so that you can develop your organization. You want to think alone, you don't allow others to think and come up with different ideas, then you are wrong and you are not a critical thinker. A good leader will always allow people to share and contribute to the ideas. That's where we find that development can take place. So, in order to be a critical thinker, you can see there are many issues which are related as the characteristics of who is a critical thinker. A critical thinker cares to present a position honestly and clearly. If you do not present your position honestly and clearly, then you distort others. This will be making others to see that you are not actually supposed to be in a certain position. You should be careful and you present what you have honestly and clearly, so that others can see that they have someone to care. A critical thinker should be clear about the intended meaning of what is said, written, or otherwise communicated, seeking as much information and accuracy as the situation requires. So, among all those which have been mentioned as characteristics of a critical thinker, so you can now start to evaluate yourself whether you are among those who should be regarded as critical thinkers or not. You should determine and maintain focus on the conclusion or question. Seek and offer reasons for their opinions or conclusion. Take into account the total situation, and then be reflectively aware of their own basic beliefs. So you can find that it's not so easy to become a critical thinker. Care about the other's point of view and treat them with respect. Always treat others with respect. Even if you think what they are saying useless, maybe what they are saying absurd, not meaning, but you should treat them with respect. Discover and listen to others' views and reasons. That's where we can find that people can work together in one office. Avoid intimidating or confusing others, taking into account others' feelings and the level of understanding. In different organizations, in different areas, in different places, actually people are not the same. People have levels of understanding. You find that you are in a place where you have people, maybe even in terms of education, you have people who have completed standard 7, those who have completed Form 4, those who have completed Form 6, those who have degrees, and even those who have PhDs and professors. So the level of understanding are not the same. But the level of education does not necessitate the level of understanding. Those are two different things. But you should always check the people you are talking with and they try to go with their levels. And even their feelings. How do they feel? If you find that they are not feeling well, then you should check what you can see or what you can do in order to communicate with them properly. A critical thinker is always concerned about the others' welfare. We live with the others in social gathering. We live with the others in different issues, in different activities. So you should be concerned with the others. And also, critical thinkers are concerned about educating others on the issues. So we would not expect a critical thinker to say that I know this and therefore that's enough even if others do not know. A critical thinker will always be concerned to educate others so that they can go together on that issue. Now we go to steps in critical thinking. Formulating your argument. Number one, you should focus on a question. In order to focus on a question, you should identify and formulate the question. These are steps in critical thinking. How do you formulate your argument? Identify and formulate the question. Develop criteria for judging possible answers. You should develop criteria for judging possible answers as you formulate and identify the question. Develop a plan for collecting data. You should be in the process of collecting data. Why collecting data? It is because you are seeking evidence. And then develop an argument and the conclusions. If you do not generate premises and the conclusions, then you will not be in a position to make a clear argument. Develop reasoning and make steps which can support your conclusions. You should always ask yourself the why question also. It's very important. And then you should analyze arguments. To analyze arguments, it means you identify conclusions and then you identify unstated reasons or assumptions. That's where you are trying to analyze. This means you take this part and this part, you are trying to analyze them so that you can have something which is tangible, which is better. You are trying to make a better argument. Identify stated reasons. Identify and handle irrelevance. And then you can forget and remove those irrelevance. See the structure of an argument and then you summarize. And after that, you can have a clear argument. And then you should ask in the answer questions of clarifications and no challenge. You should ask a question, why? Why are you doing this? Why are you asking me this? Why are you maybe stopping to do this and this? What is your main point? What do you mean by this and this and this? What would be an example? What would be an exception? So those are important questions in making arguments. How does that apply to this case? Describe a case which might well appear to be a counter example. What difference does it make? And what are the facts? Is this what you are saying? Would you say some more about that? So all these help the person who is in a position of making arguments to be a good critical thinker, and that can make good and better, sometimes better arguments. Now, you should always judge the credibility. Now you should always judge the credibility of a source. Don't accept every source, but you should be in a position to judge it. Is it credible enough to be taken? Check the major criteria and not necessarily the conditions. Expertise, lack of conflict of interest, agreement among sources, reputation or risk to reputation, use of establishing procedures, ability to give reasons. So those are some of the issues to be analyzed as you are trying to ensure that you judge the credibility of the source. For example, check the guilt or innocence of an accused criminal defendant. Is the evidence physical or circumstantial? How good with the evidence? Were there eyewitnesses? How reliable are they? If you want to judge a person, for example, these are some of the questions which you do always ask. Don't simply say this person is wrong if you have not asked yourself these questions. Is the evidence physical or circumstantial? How good with the evidence? Were there eyewitnesses? Even if you go to the court, always they will be asking you the same questions. Were you there to witness this and this and this? How reliable are they? And then you can just judge a person having answered those questions. Direct observations are strong evidence because of minimal inference involved, because of short time interval between observation and the report, because of report by the observer rather than someone else. That's if the report is not as hearsay and they can be verified. So in order to have a direct observation, then you can make a strong evidence rather than what you can be told by others. Collaboration or possibility of collaboration, good access to actual physical evidence, competent employment of technology, if technology is used, satisfaction by observer and the reporter, if a different person of credibility criteria is involved. And then we go to inference. In the critical thinking we have induction, moving from specific to general, arguments based on observation or experience. And then we have deduction, moving from general to specific, arguments based on laws, rules, or widely accepted principles. And then we have the data, getting the data. Designing experiments, including planning to control variables, seeking evidence and counter evidence, seeking other possible explanations, evaluating the strength of available evidence with a focus on methodology. And then judging conclusions with the proposed conclusion would explain the evidence. The proposed conclusion is consistent with all known facts. We have competitive alternative explanations which are consistent with the facts. And then we have the proposed conclusion which seems plausible. That's important. And you should ask testable questions. Testable questions. For example, if you become a critical thinker and you want to make clear judgment, you want to be a good critical thinker who can develop good arguments. These are some of the issues which you can be asking yourself. These are examples. For example, if you say, do infants dream? Why do you ask yourself this question? This means you are moving from this question to make a judgment, to make an argument. Does caffeine make people anxious? Are some people born evil? Does smoking lead to lung cancer? Are dreams an indication of unconscious desires and conflicts? Is it physical therapy beneficial? So these are some of the issues. If you develop all those issues and you do not rely on your own ideas, you allow other ideas to come in your mind, then you become a good critical thinker, and then you will be in a position to make good arguments. So I would like to thank you for your attention. Obviously, you will have some questions to clarify for more important issues related to arguments.